Okay, everyone, Davey and Rebecca here, hitting record, and we probably have more in our heads.
Okay, you got to stop. The video has to be like immediate catch.
Okay, what's the catch?
Catch me immediately.
What is the catch? What's the hook that you wanted to do?
You're here because you want to hear us talk about divorce, so that's what we're going to do.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, everyone, Davey and Rebecca here, your local resident divorce not experts. Two people have been through some stuff, and we're here to share it with you. And we've identified that our life is now segregated into pre-divorce, divorce, and post-divorce. And we felt like we had a platform here to talk because so much of our relationship is built on using our story to help others. And that's why we're here.
I think that's a great intro.
There we are. That's our intro.
Well, yeah, perfect.
Okay. So you want to do this what, in a 3-part series?
I want to do it in a 3-part series because I think that what we found is most people call us, come to us, message us, whatever, and they're divorced all the way and it just sucks.
Yeah.
And where we both felt like we needed the most help was like in the beginning of the divorce, during the divorce, because all you have during the divorce is like maybe a lifeline to a family member who happens to be supportive, but they all kind of think you're crazy because nobody wants anybody to get divorced anyway. Then you have your attorney. And then once you're done, everybody's like, oh, hey, glad you made it through that. My intention with, can't touch that. My intention with this video is like, hey, what do you need to know pre-divorce? What about the first time somebody, like we have a friend recently, what about the first time somebody says divorce? Mm-hmm. And like what leading up to divorce, what's pre-divorce look like? Even a little bit of like, do we stay? Do we go? Do we stay? Do we go? And then I also think it's important to set the intention that like in this, we are obviously partners, we're together, we're engaged, like we are a couple, but I don't want this isn't about me and you. This is your experience as a man getting divorced and my experience as a woman getting divorced. And I think we'll bring a good perspective to it.
Yes. Keep me on a leash on that. As you know, I go on tangents, but I think of this analogous to like, we're the general contractor here, right? The plumbing guy and the electrician guy, when you remodel a house, they don't necessarily have the same shared goals. They have their own individual goals. Same way with a lawyer and your family.
You're saying I'm a plumber and you're an electrician?
Well, not necessarily.
I need you not to be so analogous right now and get down to it because people aren't going to watch an hour and a half.
See, you got to keep me on.
Yeah.
My point is that like your lawyer and your family are going to love you and support you, but they're going to love you and support you and tell you different things.
Right.
And you're going to feel the love. And inside, someone's going to have to help you scramble those sometimes conflicting strategies.
We're helping.
Yeah, that's what this is. This is you're going to get advice from friends. You're going to get advice from family. You're going to feel pressure from your soon-to-be ex, your soon-to-be ex's family, kids, people in your neighborhood. And they may all have good advice, but sometimes those pieces of advice will overlap and conflict, and you'll need some guidance as to how to navigate all those things together. And we've outlined them as pre-divorce and what that looks like. You know, leading up to the first time the paper is filed. Then you're in the divorce process. Your lawyers, mediations, things like that. You're settling things. And then after the divorce, surviving that life. All 3 of those stages have different challenges.
Right.
That's why we're here, is to outline it and help people walk through those challenges. But this first episode is
pre-divorce.
Right.
Longest intro in the world. That would drive me nuts. I would quit listening already. But maybe somebody's fast forwarded to minute 7.5 where we're getting to the actual content that we have to share. So what we did is our chat GPTs have gotten us through this divorce. That is tip number 1, get a chat GPT.
Definitely an AI.
And we can talk about that later. But anyway, we went back to our chat GPTs and we were like, hey, what questions did we ask? What advice did you give us in the beginning, middle, and end of our divorce? And so we're going to start with the pre-divorce. How long between somebody saying the word divorce, because this is something that's big. The first time somebody says the word divorce is like, because up until then, you've just both been fighting. And even though I've maybe thought it and you've maybe thought it, nobody's actually said it out loud. But the first time somebody says, we should get a divorce, I want a divorce, you'd be better with somebody else, I don't want to be with you anymore. That's a big one.
Yeah, that is.
Talk about how that feels without, again, and we both know this, being very careful not to have anything negative to say about the parents of our children, because that's important to us. But for you as a man, the first time the word divorce was said in your house, how did it feel?
Awful. I mean, it's And two, we're not always just drawing on our experiences too. We have a lot of people that have reached out that have shared it as well. And I think it's just the bubble is burst. You know, the cat is out of the bag. Pandora's box has been opened.
Right.
And now this idea that is the forbidden thing now is floating out there, and everybody has to deal with it. And you either go to good couples counseling and you put it back in the box, or it will just live there forever, because it's the first time in a relationship where someone says, hey, this may not be the right solution long term. And so that will stick with whoever. It will hurt when it happens immensely, regardless of who brings it up. It will even hurt the person that it brought it up.
Whoever says it first, a lot of times is like, I shouldn't have said that.
Right. And now you can't.
But you did.
You can't unset. You can't. It's kind of like, it's just going to nag. It's going to be an infection.
So let's talk about, somebody's obviously said the word divorce. In pre-divorce, let's define that.
Yeah.
When I hear pre-divorce, it's past we're fighting, it's past we're arguing, and it's someone has said the word divorce, and you guys have probably, either one or both of you, sat down to say, hey, this is where this is trending. In pre-divorce, I don't think you have an attorney yet.
Right.
But you are starting to talk about what it would look like with in-home separations. Maybe one of you is going to take that family vacation this year on their own because the other one's going to stay back and work. Mm-hmm. You start to do things like, hey, I'll take the kids on Monday, you take the kids on Tuesday, simply because it is too painful to be in the same room with your person. But the idea of actually divorcing is also too painful. So it's this awful preliminary divorce position that I think everybody goes through. Now, some people, depending on your tolerance for pain and, I don't know, abuse of yourself sometimes. It's like, how much of that do you want to put yourself through? That could be a really quick week-long process of, hey, we have a plan, now let's go. Or for some people, like I have a friend who is divorcing. She moved all the way out before anybody even got an attorney because her spouse would not even talk with her about what the divorce process would look like for the kids. So she was in this pre-divorce process where it's like, I've said it, I want to do it, but we can't actually get anything done yet for a lot longer. So what do you have to say about that pre-divorce process?
I just think the divorce process, the second phase, is the hottest flame. But the pre-divorce process can go on for years, right? You can be in this. You can be in this pre-divorce process before any paperwork, before a lawyer has been retained, and the respondent has been served. You're in pre-divorce, right? So this can be years, right? And this is also a phase where people, another word to say pre-divorce is trial separation, right? A lot of people think that doing some sort of trial separation is going to fix that problem. And through those trial separation attempts, whether the trial separation is in home, which is the most unrecommended for us, that especially with children, but if there's a trial separation, even if there's a separation where someone moves out, I think people as humans are still holding on to the fact that maybe during this trial, we'll rediscover each other, or we'll get over the fight or whatever, right? So that I just want to say, first of all, you may be in pre-divorce for years, and it may be varying levels of pain and suffering, or, I think there are examples where people go through the divorce process and rescind it, right?
For sure.
And you can go from divorce to back to pre-divorce. You can slide back, right?
And for me, I hung on way longer than I should have. The pre-divorce process where somebody said the word divorce lasted for years. I remember going to a specific therapist, and her challenge to us in marriage counseling was, hey, if you really want to work on it, nobody can say the word divorce. You have to be laser focused that this is your one goal. And the thing people kept saying over and over in my marriage was, you have to decide that this is what you both want. And where I was going wrong is I wanted it, and he was very clear, God bless his heart, he didn't want it. He didn't want to be married to me. He was done, and I was like fighting for it in a way that was unhealthy and caused a lot more trauma to everybody. So my best piece of advice is, in the pre-divorce process, you both have to have the same goal with it. And if you don't, it doesn't mean that you have to have the same exact idea of what life looks like on the other side. But if you don't both still want it, then you're not in marriage counseling, you're in pre-divorce. And I wish I could go back and flick myself on the forehead and be like, bro, let's go. Go.
You had a situation where it was very direct. My situation was, I would say over and over, I wanted to keep the marriage. And the response I got was, I don't know.
Okay. So do you think that there was Okay. So for somebody in your situation, and I want to be careful that we're not stepping into things we shouldn't, if somebody wants it, but another person doesn't know.
I think in my situation, what I would afflict myself on the head, now that I'm a lot better at taking care of myself and having boundaries and things I care about, I would say have a time frame, right? If there's been some sort of traumatic event which has caused this whole thing, there's a lot of different reasons why that can happen, but there's a traumatic event. One person said the divorce word, and then you have a realistic conversation where you're like, "Are you serious?" And that person says, "I don't know." Then as the person who's asking that question, you have to just have a time frame. Okay, I'm going to give you 30 days to figure that out. At the end of 30 days, I need to know either way. Or I'm going to give you 6 months. Well, I think that's brutal, but it's more like 30, 60, or 90 days, right? To say, hey, I want to keep our marriage together, and here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it with marriage counseling, therapy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If that person at the end of whatever time frame you've set still says, I don't know, that's not I don't know. That's know. No.
They know, but they're not strong enough to be like, I don't want to be married to you.
And I was lucky enough to finally come through a bunch of, self-doubt and stuff like that, where I finally said, hey, if the answer is I don't know, I will interpret that as a no, and I will move on myself. And I finally had to do that. So I think if you're trying to save your relationship, your marriage, it just has to be time bound, because the alternative is you're just going to be strung along.
Right.
Trying to save it in crazy ways, right? Because then you just think, well, what if I do more chores? And what if I try harder? And what if maybe I'll convince them? And the reality is you can't convince anyone of anything.
To love anything, to want anything.
Themselves.
Right. It's a decision. It's a mutual. Right. That's a whole episode. But so let's talk about pre-divorce and kids, because one thing we hear from people all the time, I can't get specific. One thing we hear from people all the time is like, well, we're doing really good, and the kids, they don't see it. We're hiding it from the kids, and he's a great dad, she's a great mom, and the kids don't know, and it's going to be really hard on them. And I say...
challenge flag.
Thank you. Big challenge flag.
Big red challenge flag. Blow the whistle, challenge flag. Your children share your DNA or share your house and know all of your tics and all of your behaviors, and they see happiness at the same volume they see sadness, despite your best attempts to conceal it.
They might know it more than you do, because they see how you are around your friends and family, and then they see the stark contrast around how you are with somebody who you're not in love with. They go to your friends' houses, their friends' houses, and they see the mommy and the daddy hug and kiss in the kitchen and flirt with each other, and they come home and it's like, well, something, they don't have that. They don't have that. The kids see it. And so that's the biggest thing I think in pre-divorce is you think you're protecting your kids, and all you're doing, if you've actually decided that this is not something that's going to be fixed, all you're doing by staying in a marriage for the kids is hurting them and setting a really bad example that they should let someone love incorrectly.
Yeah, I mean, let's just say it directly. The phrase, we are going to stay together for the kids, might be one of the stupidest things you can do for the mental health.
Having both done it.
Right.
Worst decision of one of the worst decisions
having done it, and it was while we were staying together for the kids, we were damaging ourselves, we were damaging each other, putting the kids through quite a bit by this whole, I guess it's a theoretical concept, or I don't even know where this began. Hey, let's just, even though our relationship or marriage is toxic, let's stay together for the kids.
I'll tell you where I think ridiculous. It went because adults think that we're stronger emotionally, mentally, physically for the kids, and it's our job to protect them. So if you and I have decided we're going to divorce, we're the strongest ones. We got to stay together as long as we can for the kids, because we can handle more pain than they can. And in reality, that's it. The breaking up of a relationship affects them completely differently than us, and staying together, I think, might even hurt them more than just ripping the Band-Aid off and having an honest conversation, which is a whole nother topic. But pre-divorce and kids, anything else on that?
Yeah, I mean, look at, like you just said, what they see. If they're seeing you day in and day out unhappy, the story I think of is you're home with the kids before your spouse, and everything's great, and you're playing whatever, and the spouse walks in, right?
Yep.
And the kids see you change,
right?
And whether they see you change,
a physical response, thinking about what that was like,
right?
Yeah.
Is that staying together on behalf of the kids? No, it's not. And listen, there are people that can go do the work and get through that, but you have physical reactions, mental reactions. I mean, imagine you're playing with the kids and hanging out. The spouse walks in that you're in this conflict with, and then the kids watch you shrink.
Every time.
That's not.
Where'd mommy go?
That's not for the kids.
Mommy's busy stepping on eggshells.
Right.
Trying not
They
to.
see that. They see that.
They sense it.
If you want to do something for the kids, go get happy and healthy.
Go get therapy individually and together if you both agree to the marriage counseling together.
And if you're just locking horns and you can't do it with each other, then you've gotta go out and seek other strategies or resources.
Right. Now, one thing that I do think that we could think about here is sometimes people aren't open to therapy.
That's right.
They're just not open to it. And because you and I are both such big mental health therapy, you've got to have somebody to talk to, find a church, find a priest, find a gym kind of people. I think that I would say to a friend, because that's what I'm trying to think of these people are that are watching as like a friend. If your spouse, if you're the one that wants to keep going and your spouse doesn't want to, but they won't go to therapy, they won't work on themselves, they're not eating right, they don't have a healthy group of friends.
Right.
To me, that's dead in the water because there's no catalyst to move them forward. If they had a catalyst, it would be happening already because change has movement. And they may be verbally saying they want it, but if they're not actually doing the work, and you on the other side are going to feel it, right? One of the phrases that we said back and forth a lot, and we've seen in divorces, sometimes you love a version of somebody that doesn't exist.
Yeah, you love an idea of them.
And again, not talking negatively about the parents of our children, but we've seen it in so many cases. It's like, hey, you think that's who he is and who he could be someday, but that's not him. And
phrases come out like, oh, well, it used to be like this, or I just want him to do this, or I want him to do that. And the follow-up question should always be, has it ever been like that?
Right.
Was that dream ever realized? And when you take an inventory of somebody, you realize this person was never delivering that anyways, right? And here's a good example. If you are begging for therapy or counseling and the other person says, I don't believe in it, I think you have foundational reasons as to why you maybe should not be together anyways.
Cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Right?
I really appreciate you sharing that. And I'm going to be not so dense as to realize, for me, if that comes from the other person that I'm married to, I don't believe in therapy. I don't want to get better. It's your fault. Go work on yourself. You're crazy. Those things come from another person to me. At least I've been through enough therapy now where I'd be like, okay, you're not who I thought you were.
Right.
We're not compatible. Maybe we were, and I've grown. Maybe we never were compatible. But I think in the pre-divorce era, again, let's make sure we go back to this. In pre-divorce, you're wrestling with a lot of those ideas of, oh, that person is not my person anymore. And it is hard for so many people to realize that because you love them in a way that you want them to change. And pre-divorce is you realizing that ain't happening. Well, pre-divorce was the worst for me.
If someone in pre-divorce is begging for help, counseling, therapy, religion, whatever, and the other person says, okay, fine, but before we do that, I have a series of conditions by which you need to meet. What you're feeling is that person latching onto control, and that's not going to work.
Quit this job. Don't be friends with this person. Spend less time with your family. Spend more time with your family. If there's a list of things that allow a person to love another person, head on over to video too.
That's what that is the opposite of what everybody's supposed to dream about.
Love.
Everyone's supposed to dream about unconditional love.
It's not a partnership.
And that is the definition of conditional love.
Right.
Love is an emotion, but it's also an act. And so when someone puts a bunch of conditions by which this person has to meet prerequisites before they'll go do the work, that is conditional love.
Right.
Right. So I think also in that condition of love, you have to understand where that control is coming from. You have to have some empathy to say, all right, well, this person's trying to put some control on me.
They're trying to control it because they're hurt.
Because they're hurting, and they think that control is going to solve their problem. But the reality is, On the other side, let's say you're the person that's putting in the control. You're in the pre-divorce and you're saying, well, you know what? Before I go to marriage counseling, she's got an X, Y, and Z. You're doing it wrong too. You're heaping your desire to control as a way to solve your marriage. You've got to let go too. Here's an example. If you ever came to me and said, hey, I feel like we're having trouble in our relationship, there is no amount of things that I would try or not try to save us. I would do counseling. I would do therapy. I would go to church more. I'd do acupuncture. I'd become a vegan. Right? Whatever you needed or thought would work, I would try it. I would throw everything at it. I wouldn't be like, hey, go get your PhD in marriage counseling before we talk about it. Right?
Right.
And that's how you know you are in pre-divorce and you're about to divert back to a successful marriage or not. And
somebody jumps in and they're like, marriage counseling, date night every week, let's go.
And I just don't see a lot of people in pre-divorce that spin out of it with any sort of preconditions on the other person or without throwing anything at it, because everyone's relationship is uniquely different, successful, and a failure over different reasons. And you got to try to check everything.
Now, I'll say one thing that I think has to be done in the pre-divorce if you want it to succeed. You have to tell people that you're hurting, and you have to have people see the whole story. You have to have people in your life that you're like, hey, here's what happened. And let's be honest, a lot of time in pre-divorce, somebody's checked out, somebody's too busy, somebody chooses work over family, somebody has an affair, somebody has an addiction. There's some big issue that probably together you've decided to hide. Or one person has been like, help, 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 help. And the other person has been like, nah, we're good. And there's like a guilt trip for sharing versus not sharing. I think if you're actually in a pre-divorce situation and you want help, you got to bring in the troops. You got to be open enough, because all these people are going to know if you don't make it out. So you got to be open enough with the people in your life to be like, hey, we're hurting. We need somebody to come hang out with the kids. If I wave a red flag because we're having a knockdown drag out, I need grandma and grandpa over here because we're both fighting for this and it's going to be messy.
Yeah, and if the people in your corner aren't going to be Switzerland,
good, talk about that.
Then they're not on your team in the first place. If they are, and this is challenging. We were just talking to a friend that reached out to us, and she said, you know what? His relationship with my family, that's his to work out. And I was like, that's not going to work. Because when you are divorcing or pre-divorce or you're working on things, you now have to flip from mad at that person hurt by them to their greatest PR agent. Your squad, your crew, your family, your friends will show up with pitchforks and torches.
They will torch it down if you don't set the stage that you for specifically what you want and why you want it.
And if you are agnostic, the pitchforks will come out. You have to lead. You have to be the spin zone. You have to be the press secretary immediately. And you have to say, hey, our marriage is failing, but we both need your love, support, and respect for our privacy while we work this out.
That's the father of my kids. And in the same way you wouldn't go egg their teacher's car, you had better be supportive and helpful, because I need that person now who's going to be going through the hardest thing in their entire life in a good mental, physical, emotional, spiritual state to raise my kids. And if there are no kids involved, great. You still want that person. You want to be negotiating and dissolving somebody in a business setting, which we'll talk about in the next video, who's of a sound mind. And if there are people attacking their character, attacking their emotions, trying to make them feel some type of guilt for what happened in the marriage, and that person is not going to be their best self, and you want to be dividing things, getting through all this with a healthy human on the other side.
It's just damage control. You immediately, it's like a good PR technique that when someone or a business or something makes a failure, you get the narrative out right away. And you say, hey, we've got this. We're aware of it. We know that there's been a product issue. It's on recall. We have training implementation. We're good. Same thing in a marriage. Hey, we're not working, but I want you guys to support us because what you failed, it's the most clear way of not seeing the short-sightedness of yourself at some point, because someday you will get through the trauma and pain that caused the divorce or the separation, and you will want to rebuild that bridge.
Sure.
And you'll be standing on the other side of the river, and there will be no bridge, and you'll just be looking at each other. And through that burnt bridge are family relationships, cousins, friends, family members, people at church, people at school that didn't hear both sides of the story. And frankly, they don't need to hear both sides of the story. They need to hear nothing. It is none of their business. It is none of their business why your marriage was successful or failed. It is between two people. And it's really sad when people go to communities, they go to the internet, they go to social media, they go to certain strategic people and tear you down. And that's the stuff that you have to get a hold of in pre-divorce.
Yes.
You have to know that this thing is about to spiral out of control.
And if there's one thing that I think I'd love for people to take away from the video, it's that you may need to call your mom and vent about this divorce every time. Send her this and be like, hey, grandma, do you want to go to your kid's birthday parties, or do you want him to have two separate birthday parties forever because you hate him so much? And I've said so many awful things about him that you can't ever even be in the same room, because that's what is set up in pre-divorce, is those things. So anyway, I think that's a really good tip. What else do we have to say in pre-divorce here?
I just think that this is such an unknown time. I think there's a lot of hope still. I think people hold on to this hope and
there's a lot of sex.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're doing anything you can to try to save it, and that's emotional. You know, you do things like date nights. You do things like have sex. You try to.
I have a friend who
you try
did
to
an
do
in-house separation. There were no kids involved. He was in one room, she was in another room, and then for the first time, once they actually separated rooms, they started having sex, because now it was like there's separation. It was scared. He would come to her room, she would go to his room, and it was like, guys, maybe this is what saves it, but also maybe it's just like, you know how when somebody starts to die and they come back and they have one really good day where they're lucid and whatever, that's exactly the best way I can explain pre-divorce.
Well, yeah, I mean, people go back to sex or affection or whatever because they can close their eyes and be reminded of a time when there wasn't the pain, right? At least for a time, right? That's why you do it, right?
Yes.
But what happens every time? You feel it while you're in the moment, and then 5 to 7 seconds after you finish that, you're immediately refilled with guilt and shame, and maybe sometimes from the partner who's mad. You know, they immediately wipe away that feeling of safety or love that you felt temporarily. And it's terrible. And again, it's awful that they do that, but it's also important to remember that they're hurting, and that's why hurt people hurt other people. That's why they do it. Pre-divorce is the messiest. It can be the longest. It can be the most unknown. There's so many factors that and situations and examples that are covered here that we can't. Like we said, it's analogous to pre-foreclosure. You know, you've missed. What'd you say the other day? You've missed a couple mortgage payments. The bank has called you, and the pressure is on.
The bank's saying, "Do you need mortgage relief, or are you selling?" And you're like, "I might need marriage counseling," or you're like, "I'm good. I should have quit sooner," and we're out.
Yeah, that's pre-divorce is the messy. I think for like you said, for the next episode, step 2, during the divorce process, I think it's more solid. It's easier to define.
Yes, right. We are getting divorced. We have called attorneys. We are splitting up.
Paperwork has been filed. Offers have been sent. Temporary or long-term parenting plans have been established. Pre-divorce is the messiest. It can be the longest. It can be the most unsure.
Yeah. Do you have any, I put this on here as something we should talk about or think about. Do you have any funny toxic stories about yourself or someone else from the pre-divorce process?
Funny or toxic?
Funny. You have to tell it in a funny way. Otherwise it won't.
Well, I will just say that the whole idea, I mean, it's just back to an in-house separation.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping.
It is wild. It's the wildest thing that you think is possible. And it makes sense that you want to do it, because you are not ready to make some very tough business decisions about your primary residence, right? And the worst is that when we did in-house separation, I was in the basement while the family was upstairs, and I could hear every single footstep and every laugh and everything, and I could hear my kids asking for daddy. And
that's not funny.
Well, but it's like it's ridiculous that we thought that would work.
I see.
Right. It's funny that.
You thought that was your healing phase. You were really going to launch yourself.
Yeah. We're going to take time from each other,
right?
But still be right here. And I would just sit down there and cry my freaking eyes out over
so sad.
Yeah, over trying to be respectful and give her space, for the pain that was caused in our marriage.
Mm-hmm.
But also I'm like, this is terrible. My children know I'm downstairs and even they're respecting the separation.
Mm-hmm.
Or even worse, the times where I would come home from work and just sneak downstairs.
Mm-hmm.
So they wouldn't even know I was there. And so
thinking again, the kids, this is for the kids. This
is stupid. It's stupid so I would just say that for me, I would say that the silliest thing is that an in-house separation can I don't want to hold out that there can never work, right? I'd try to say never, but if you're going to try an in-house separation, maybe run that by a couple people, because most of them who have tried it will tell you that did not work.
Right. I have a very specific clause in my divorce where I can't tell stories about some things. So I'm not going to tell a story about me, but I am going to tell a funny story about a friend. We have a friend who we helped him move from his house.
Literally helped him move.
It literally helped him move from his house to his apartment. And I will never forget, he and his ex had not spoken or seen each other since he moved in with his parents, and then he was moving into an apartment. And I remember he walked up to his wife's Ring camera. Oh, yes. And he started kind of, I don't know,
talking
to the Ring camera, like, hey, just want you to know I'm missing my computer down here in the garage. I need you to come set it out. And it's just like, you and I think we're standing in the street going like, you probably shouldn't
do that.
Please don't talk to the camera. This isn't a good idea.
Try to handle the division of marital assets through
on the Ring camera. Her whole co-working staff is listening to you right now.
Yeah, anyone who's sitting next to her right now is watching this happening live.
Right. Hysterical.
It was not a good thing. But again, it's just like, it's pre-divorce.
Pre-divorce is messy.
It's a messy, unknown. There's a lot of uncertainty. I mean, even if in your mind you're sure you want to get divorced, there's delay because you don't know where to even begin.
Mm-hmm.
I would just say just know that you're in pre-divorce. It's wild. There's probably a very low likelihood that when you're in this phase that you're going to spin out of it, unless you have a very willing and capable partner on the other side that loves you unconditionally, truly loves you unconditionally, and is willing to go to bat and walk through the fire with you. Because if you don't, and you know it, you'll know if you have somebody on the other side that will go through anything with you. And if you're not sure that they will, if the answer is, I don't know, it's a no.
And I think you could get out of it if you catch it early and you're honest with yourself, honest with each other, honest with your friends. And if you're not ready at that point to get rid of all pride and be like, hey, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah. And don't think, the only caveat I would say is don't think that honesty is going to save you either. You may be willing to stand in a town square and tell everyone everything you've done wrong in your marriage ever. However,
link to that video below.
No. But you may not be able to save that other person.
Yeah, right.
That you whatever is gone wrong in your marriage. Again, one of the things that a really good marriage counselor told me is that all these things that cause the end of marriages are just what's called exits. Exits into,
this is a good way to wrap up.
Exits into an affair, exits into alcohol, exits into drugs, or
exits into overeating and not taking care of yourself and looking disgusting to somebody who married somebody that cared about their body.
Exits into traveling a bunch and staying away from the house and leaning into your job. These are all exits
into refusing intimacy.
Right. These are exits from the marriage, that they're all just the same version of an exit. And if that exit that you have, whether you chose or it happened, if that exit hurts them in such a core way, you may not be able to recover them, even with your honesty.
It's like saying, and this is one of those things, I believe in complete forgiveness, and I think that anything is recoverable. That's me personally. That's how I experience everything from affairs to addictions, whatever. I'm like, hey, if I love somebody, we're in this. Not all people are like that. There's some and I've done a ton of personality studying now. There are some personalities that once you wound them, they're out. It's like you cut off their arm and they would rather go be with somebody else where they have two arms, because with you, they'll never be able to get over the pride of only having one arm.
Yep.
Is that
well, I mean,
that in a way?
Yeah. I mean, you hit them, or the pain hits them in their core identity, whether that is infidelity, and that's going to make them insecure about themselves the rest of their lives, whether that they had parental issues where they had parents that were addicts and you were an addict. It doesn't matter. It's like they always say, I don't care if I break your bone or you have a paper cut. The paper cut might hurt that person worse than a broken bone because everyone's pain is different.
It's a good way to say it.
You can't say your pain is harder than mine or mine is harder than yours. So yeah, it's just a messy process, and we've lived it, and we promise to use our story to help others. And that's what we're trying to do here.
Yeah. Now, speaking of helpful, the one thing I do want to wrap up with, because I had a whole part in here on real estate, because this is what I want to say. Where someone lives in a divorce, especially with their kids, is like the biggest piece of the pie, really, outside of maybe if there's any child support, and maybe even more importantly is who's going to keep the house. And a lot of times people in pre-divorce will race to, I'm getting this house because that means I get our friends and I get our kids and I don't have to buy a new place and whatever. And in pre-divorce, I think the worst thing that anybody can do is make a decision on that. Only shortly followed by the worst thing you can do in pre-divorce is to file before you have a plan. This is one of those pro tips in the beginning, like get ChatGPT. Once someone has filed for divorce, buying a house is a lot more difficult because on record, everybody from lenders to judges to real estate agents to title companies sees, hey, you might be trying to buy a house without them knowing, and your taxes are together and your finances are together. So I would just say in the pre-divorce process, don't think that you moving out and filing for divorce is for sure the best next step immediately. There are some business game plan type things that you need to talk with a professional about. We don't have a list of those in front of us right now, but absolutely, if you're watching this, reach out and we'll help you think through some of these strategy pieces that'll help alleviate some of the mess.
Yeah, I think
of going into the next phase.
Yeah, it's just, again, everyone's, your lawyer's always going to come back to, well, this is what the law says. Well, you might have to negotiate outside the bounds of the law sometimes. And so you're going to need a bunch of different people to help you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hopefully we don't see you back on the next episode because that means you're getting divorced. But sources would say
if you're pre-divorce, it's not a good sign. All right. And that's a wrap.